I'd like to announce that the board was in executive session from approximately 6:45 till 7:30 on a number of items. And also like to announce that there was a personnel executive session on last Monday, whatever that date was, the 5th, for about an hour, 1 o'clock to 2 p.m., an executive session in that area.
If I could just add, Don, that those items that were discussed tonight were personnel items.
Thank you.
What was that?
Personnel items were discussed tonight.
Tonight.
Tonight is our regularly scheduled action meeting. The meeting is being videotaped for community cable channels. Individuals attending this meeting and intending to speak to the board should be aware that they are being videotaped. In order to meet the requirements of Pennsylvania Sunshine Law, it is necessary to record the names of all citizens who speak to the board during the meeting. To assure compliance with this requirement, it is essential that those planning to address the board come to the microphone, state their name and address, and sign the audience and citizens logbook. Members of the audience are asked to limit their questions and comments to allow time for all those who wish to speak to the board. The board president may ask an individual to yield the microphone to the next speaker. At this time, I'd like to have a motion to recommend the approval of the minutes of the 816th meeting held on 2/15/01. Mr. Schilling?
Second.
Mrs. Mengel, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So ordered. Motion to recommend approval of the minutes of the 817th meeting held on March 6th, 2001. Mr. Gordon.
Second.
Mr. Schilling, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So ordered. And recommend approval of minutes of the work session held on March 6th, 2001 as circulated. Mr. Bukowski, Mr. Gordon, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Question?
Yes.
Ms. Lebrowski, did the resume of Dr. Joe get in everybody's packet this week?
No, it did not. I was told not to.
What was it? What was the question?
Dr. Tove's resume was presented during the
Oh,
work session?
the reason that was, well, you should have got a copy.
He did.
Did you get a copy?
Yeah, I
But
got a copy.
full story, that was never presented to the board, was never a board document. It was
Okay,
never, so we can't be certified items that was really not an official document to this board. You got your copy, that's fine.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so ordered. I'd like to proceed now with the committee reports. Support Services, Mr. Schilling.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. The Support Services Committee is pleased to announce that the 4 new modular classrooms at Montgomery Elementary School have been substantially completed. Punch list items and site work will continue into the spring. The class were initially occupied on February 22nd. Also, Oak Park design plans are underway. The meeting was held at the Pennsylvania Department of Education in Harrisburg on March 8th for the department. Mr. Burnett, our architect, and Dr. Venema and Mr. Strobel attended the district. At the meeting, we were given verbal approval of the Plan Con Part B pending Plan Con Part A approval. Also, a subcommittee has been established regarding use and maintenance of athletic fields. Mr. Bill Allen will be chairing that subcommittee. An initial meeting of that committee occurred earlier this week. Tonight, the committee asked for your vote of approval to submit Plan Con Part D, Plan Con Part E documents for additions and alterations to Oak Park, the PA Department of Education. Additionally, we ask for your support for the bids to be awarded on the agenda. The committee's next meeting will be held Monday, March 26, 2001 at 6 p.m. Will be updates on the Montgomery Elementary School modular classroom project, the renovation project of Oak Park Elementary School, the status of the former 4-H building, and the funding of playground equipment throughout the district, in addition to other information, items, and concerns. End report.
Thank you. Is there any questions? Mr. Gordon.
Question. With the Oak Park project, the timing of all the different pieces to it, when is it expecting that we need to go to bid on architects and so on?
Bid will be in June. I believe that information's in your packet.
I'm sorry.
There's a timeline in the back, Bruce.
And when are we figuring out our funding for it?
funding estimates are coming forward as we speak. We won't know the exact, we need funding.
Funding either whether
Are we
the
paying
bond
for
is
the
on.
project?
We can do that as part of the budget process. We briefed that very briefly at the budget briefing the other night when we talked about our capital projects fund. But whether we issue a bond fund or the amount of that bond fund, we'll discuss that during the budget process.
Okay, thank you. Regarding playground equipment, it was mentioned the other night that 2 of the playgrounds, North Wales and York, I believe, were looking to move ahead through the summer and so on. Was there any direction out of support services? I understand there was a letter presented from Home and School to North Wales Borough Council asking whether or not they could come up with some funds. Was that directed through support services?
No, it was not. Not that I
Never
know.
heard that.
No.
Okay, good. All right. 'Cause, I mean, we're looking to do this as a
Right.
district, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. All right.
Mr. Shapinsky?
On the issue of the financing of the special projects, Mike, I included that in my budget questions to discuss that for options for that. Also included in that were the Gwen Nord potentials and the Pembroke and the Penfield potentials too. So when you bring that forward, you might want to bring the whole picture forward for us at one time. They're all pretty much slated for the next 2 years, correct?
Well, except what we had talked about during when we approved the feasibility study, it was just looking at those that need next year, which is just Oak Park, and let the feasibility
understand that.
study help the rest.
I understand that. John, Mr. Schilling, the appointment of the field, the ad hoc committee that Mr. Allen's going to run, would you be open to accepting appointments to the public or from the public to that committee as an ad hoc committee?
Oh, absolutely.
Then you should probably at the next meeting discuss it with Bill and
Bill,
establish
I'm
it.
sure Bill wanted that, correct? Am I?
If I can interrupt,
Sure.
we had a meeting, we invited every group that uses any field to a meeting that we had yesterday. Our plan is, and it was just basically a listen session. We told them what we're trying to do, the problem, and we just wanted to hear all the issues from all the people that use the fields. And the plan was to ask 2 people from the group of people, of groups that use our fields, to be part of the regular committee. So that's already in the plan.
Well, would you be willing to expand that somewhat?
I don't know why we want to get too many, Vince.
Well, I just think the more input you have from.
We had the input.
people.
That's what we did yesterday. We will have them again as a group, but now it's up to the district to.
Well, when you asked people to come over, was it just people, our sports people, or was it a full range of community users?
Any
of
community
properties?
group that has a contract with the school district was invited.
Did you have, how many people did you have at the meeting?
There were about 22 people, I think,
Yeah.
or groups invited. I think we had about 12 people. that-
12, 13,
that
14.
indicated they'd show up.
Yeah.
All right, well, if you guys are confident with it, I mean, I would like to make sure we try to include more of the public in something like that, because it's a very serious community issue for us.
It's all the
Absolutely.
groups that use the fields.
I mean, for someone who feels slighted, let them come
And I
forward and talk
understand
about
that,
it.
Bill, and I'd like to have balance to that by also someone, including not only the people that use the field, but the people who pay for them and the people who do other things for them. It'd be nice to have a nice wide
Well,
range of opinion.
I think if there's someone who really wants to be like, let them talk to Mr. Allen. And let him,
And that's why I brought it
Yeah,
up.
let Bill,
So they should direct any interest to you, Bill?
Yeah, if they want to get on.
Any other questions for Mr. Schilling?
Well, in relationship to Oak Park, it kind of crosses over into the financing aspect. We're wondering, we had received a few months ago, I'm trying to find the paperwork here, actually it was about 6 months ago, where we had a breakout of a $6.2 million capital reserve fund. And in there, it designated $3.2 million of that money towards Oak Park. Now, I do understand that money doesn't exist there anymore, right?
That's correct.
And I've seen it before where a lot of things were put in motion as far as going out and looking into proposing a bond issue, and then suddenly it comes forward usually mid-June or mid-December, either one of those 2 cycle dates. And if we're moving in that direction, I really think we should have the discussion about the philosophy of related to bond issues. First of all, is that the route we're going? Should have really been discussed before we approve a project. It's always good to secure the funding first. And secondly, about electoral debt versus non-electoral debt. That if in fact if we're going out for a bond issue, by which mechanism do we want to do it? By board mandate or by community referendum? So if there is to be a dialogue on that, I'd like it to come forward in the near future.
I think I understand that's going to be part of the budget process. We have to talk about those items. Any other questions? Mr. Schilling, when was that, state again when your next committee meeting is?
March 26th, 6 o'clock.
I don't know whether we want to put that into facilities or whether we'll take it through finance. It's one of those two items that it actually falls under.
Funding goes through finance
goes
through the
through
budget
finance.
process. Educational services, Mrs. Kowski.
Thank you. The Educational Services Committee met on February 27th. Kathy Loftus, our learning coordinator, responsible for our elementary ESL program, presented a description of our current program, population trends, and a proposal to modify our program beginning September 2001. There was unanimous committee support for the recommendation to move the agenda, to move it to the action agenda this evening. The committee also heard reports on the status of the curriculum review process in secondary math, art, instructional music, and physical education. And finally, a subcommittee was formed to discuss the Pembroke overcrowding and to review options for a solution. The committee met March 7th, and a report of that meeting will be presented at our next Educational Services Committee meeting, and that will be held on Tuesday, March 20th at 7 p.m. At that meeting, we will also discuss our school calendar for 2001-2002 and snow makeup days. End of report. Thank you.
Any questions? Finance, Mr. O'Donnell.
Yes, Finance. Last month, we didn't have a meeting. The next meeting will be on the 28th at 6 p.m. We'll be discussing our regular items, what we normally discuss, mostly the revenue, to make sure that we're on track with our budget. We'll be continuing the budget process. We'll be discussing some of the expense items, salary items, to make sure we're on track again, just to make sure that's in line with our current budget. That's really all I wanted to say as far as that. And I was thinking today, and this is still under finance, I guess. Something I just typed up this morning, it didn't bother me. A few days ago, the board was given a presentation on the first draft of next year's budget. We need to seriously evaluate the requested $8 million increase. This increase is unacceptable. What I'd like, some thoughts on my mind are, first, the comparison process has changed. Where are the actual expenses from prior years? Second, what I'd like to see, I would like to see the new budget compared to actual expenses for this year's compared to prior year's expenses and the current year budget. No company, repeat, no company compares their new budget to the prior year budget. Please provide the board with this information. This is nothing new. This board has less information than previously submitted in prior years. Notes were taken during the past 2 years. What happened? Third, instead of planning to spend more money next year, I'd recommend we put a freeze on all non-essential spending. I know at this time we could save at least $100,000 in overtime. I know that from the reports I've seen. And probably $1 million or so in other non-essential spending. We seem to have no overtime policy. Tonight on the superintendent's report, there's a recommendation to approve the everyday math program. I can only urge the board to table this motion at this time until we get our spending under control. Thank you.
Any questions for Ms.?
Table what? Everyday math. K through 6.
It's on here tonight. And it's on here to recommend for approval, and I think it's in the budget for $360-some thousand.
311.
Well, 3 there, but I talked to Bob because I told 364 one place and 311 another place.
Well, the elementary program is 311, which is in the materials that were given to you earlier this week. 310,300 is.
I saw 310 one place and I saw 364 some other place.
311 is what I presented at the budget meeting. That's for the elementary programs, correct?
Thanks. Anyway, those are my comments. Thank you.
Frank, when I pulled the budget calendar, and I know we've had a lot of changes, we lost 3 meetings, we had one that was abbreviated, we only had an hour at the last one, the first of what was supposed to be the 4th. I also have a date of March 19th. In the last memo that I received, they gave me a updated budget calendar. It said March 19th at 6 o'clock, and then March 28th would be following that.
I think what's happened, Vicki, is it's been very difficult. Bob has called people or emailed or whatever we talked. It's been very difficult to get everybody together. So we had the first meeting the other night, and we're going to continue that process. The process will change in my mind. I intend to be sending, I made up about 4 or 5 questions and some comments here. I will be emailing Mike with those requests, as other board members were requested. So on the 28th, we will see a response to those suggestions. And then probably on the 28th, depending on how much Mike can get done, I would like to think what the committee will discuss when the next, based on what changes will be made, and what dates are available, when the next committee, when the budget committee can meet, when the finance committee can meet next one to follow up on those changes. So I think
Well, I just feel, I'm just a little concerned because we've already eliminated a number of meetings. Matter of fact, almost 50% of them, and now, I knew I had March 19th was the last one, and that was in late February. That was an updated calendar, so I didn't know why we were eliminating that. Even if all board members couldn't make it, the quorum of the finance committee and all those who could, at least we could accomplish something.
As you know, at least the first 1 or 2 is critical, because that's where, even though it's a finance meeting, when you have a majority of the board, if the majority of the board's majority says, let's go in this direction, then that's providing direction for Mr. Fritz or the administration on how to proceed. That's why the initial meetings are essential, that we get the entire board to turn out.
All right, let me do some clarification here, just so we clear the air a little bit. The next finance meeting, which will be a budget meeting, there'll be some finance things carried. Frank O'Donnell will be on that chair of that meeting. We'll cover the finance items and the budget items. At the last budget meeting we had, which was abbreviated because of other commitments, at that time we gave Mike one direction was, based upon some of the board members' input, was to be prepared to talk about the 21 or 2 new personnel people that was part of the budget. Right. To speak clearly to those items where the board has, so they have clarification on the justification for those new people. You will also be having questions. We asked the board members to submit questions to you that they had relative to the budget, and we try to cover those items at the same time that evening. And then, as Mike conducts the next meeting on the 28th, now remember these finance meetings, budget meetings, we want the whole board to attend at all possible because of the critical nature of the items, particularly on the front end. Then we will decide when we'll have our next meeting based upon the outcome of that night. Okay?
We'll discuss how much you have to change and how much time. So if there's very little change, we'll go 2 weeks. But 1 week. If it's a lot, maybe we might go 2 weeks.
Correct.
Depending on what it is.
Correct.
And Mike is best, can probably
Any other
answer
questions
that.
related to finance?
I was still speaking till you decided to clarify what I wasn't speaking about. Frank, I agree, your moratorium, I had that suggestion the day after we voted to approve last year's budget, because I knew there was a $6 million deficit coming. It was clearly written within the numbers. It isn't something anyone likes to do, but we're in a very extreme situation. When you start out $6 million in the hole, you don't have a lot to work with as far as avoiding a major tax hike. I have looked through the budget to a point to know that if we eliminated every bit of new staff that's being requested by the administration, it would drop that $430 tax hike by $30. If we eliminated everything but all required utility increases and kept spending at the $124 million otherwise, and teachers union, we would still be faced with about 70% of the tax increases.
Vicki, one of the things you have to keep in mind, I'm not too sure we're going to meet $124 million. If you seem to remember.
You mean lower the budget beyond this year's level? Our budget this year is $124 million, plus we have about $1.5 million on extension of the teacher's contract.
Can I finish my sentence? What I'm saying is, I don't think, this is why I look at the revenue and see where we are based on the estimates of the prior year. I also look at the expenses. That's 90% of the salaries, 90% of the budget are the salaries. If you remember, the last report, it's been going in the right direction. It looked as if we were $1 million, a favorable adjustment. So then what I'm saying, as of 2 months ago, the report we saw, instead of coming in at 124, we may come in at 123.
Right.
Some money was recently transferred to the budgetary reserve, even though some came out. So we might be at 122. So then, let's,
I can
we need
understand
to
that, but
look.
that 2 million's already marked because we have two-thirds of the teachers' contracts impact actually crosses into next.
All I'm
fiscal
saying
year
is we need to
because
look
of the delay.
at the latest information to see where we are, and this will help us going forward. That's what we need to discuss.
These are items we need to discuss at the budget process. Let's
Right.
move
We
ahead.
do, but I think a lot of people think that we've just been doing one of these things where you present a budget really high and then everybody can feel better when it's only $100 or $150 increase. And I think that's very wrong to believe that is this particular budget. We definitely, we're starting out. Even if you change the deficit and Mike reports the numbers differently and moves 1 million to the budget reserve or leaves 1 million for the fund balance, that 1 million still belongs to the teacher's salary for their summer payroll and to adjust them according to the contract. 6 of one, half a dozen of another. Your spending will go up 9 million. Your deficit will go to 5 million, but your spending then goes to 9 million, so you're $14 million under what your revenues are. Either way you do it.
I'm sorry, did you have a question?
No, I was just.
I'm saying regarding what you were saying about your $1 million that you're seeing there, and that is because of the way the contract was a delayed contract that takes effect in March. We only have to cover 1/3 of it this year, but next year we have to bring all those increases for a full 12 months. And so that money is still going to be needed one way or another. Unless there's hidden dollars in there.
Those
And
are
that's what we'll
budgetary
have to
items
deal
we
with.
have to cover, so let's save that for the budget time. Mrs. Mengel, you had a question?
Again, the amount of money on the math, the everyday math program up tonight for approval, how much?
$310,324.
Okay, well, Frank, I can't support you in freezing that amount. I'd sooner lop off 3 administrators here with salaries and benefits and get rid of $310,000 out of the budget than cut an entire math program K through 6. They can just walk out right now, as far as I'm concerned, than just cut this tonight, okay? The other evening, I thought Mike Frist did an excellent job, not only preparing our packet together, but the presentation in a short period of time he was given. I felt like I had plenty of information. It was an ugly picture, but the man's not responsible for the picture he delivered the other night. I thought the information was great, and I know that some of the details he's going to be able to generate for us are only going to get better. And
It was a good presentation.
The moratorium on the spending, I support you on it. Any unnecessary spending from building to building, we usually do that about this time of year anyway. If it wasn't spent, that's too bad you lost it. But I think there isn't 5 votes on the board, obviously, for what was put out the other night. And I'm sure Mike Frist didn't expect that. I know Bob Hassler didn't expect that. They knew the first night is always a nightmare, and it always makes headlines the next
It was the same as last year.
morning.
It was the same as last year.
It happens every year, and it's happened for the 10 years I've been sitting here, to just expect the first night to be a nightmare. But, the challenge to the board is, a combination of taking out a very thin knife for fine cutting, and then you bring out the meat cleaver for some of the things that are going to get hacked.
Okay. Donna, what I was just simply indicating is, we saw budget to budget, and no company does budget to budget. You won't find one company in the world that does budget to budget. You have a budget last year, you look at your actual, where are you? And I'd like to see the prior years. That's the process we've been doing. That helps me in evaluating when I see several years comparison. As an accountant, I always compare to my prior years, evaluate any changes, look at the budget, and then where are we now? Well, we saw a budget where we know over time, $300,000 was budgeted. There are $200,000 right now. Budget to budget says they get that $300,000 right away. Even if we hire more people, they still have $300,000 more. And I'm saying, no, maybe it should go down to 2. Those are the type items that I'm talking about. So you compare actual, we look at a budget and look at our actual then. You always need historical records when you're doing accounting.
And I'm sure those are forthcoming, but for the first night's snapshot, that wasn't necessary. The homework papers that we're going to need from here forward to do the cutting that's going to have to be done will come with that.
Yeah, well, again, my perspective as an accountant, that's what I do.
Well, I'd encourage you to rethink the math program.
We need to teach them how to do the math. So
All right,
they
I'd
don't
like to
have
move
problems
ahead,
later.
Personnel, there was, there's items on the agenda tonight, but they're mostly routine items. Under community relations and policy, Don, I would also like you to speak to, since you're on the negotiating team, just where we stand, and that's so the community knows. Donna Mengel.
Okay, first, in terms of negotiations, they are ongoing, they remain amicable. Colin Likens is from the NPEA team, he's with us this evening, and appreciate him coming to tonight's meeting. Talks, we assume, will be ongoing, and there's no major developments to report to the community or to the full board at this time. As for community relations, the first reading of Board Policy 4400, pregnancy policy is now, it's item 20-01, is slated for the first reading this evening. End of report.
Any other comments from the board? Yes, Mr. Gordon.
Mr. Clerk, at this time, I'd like to take the opportunity to make a motion that we poll, that the board consider, that the board cancel the work on this pregnancy policy. I make a motion.
Okay, you made a motion. Do I have a second?
Do we have that within policy, though? Readings?
It's a first reading. It's not, this is the first reading tonight.
We don't
There's a
vote on
motion on the
readings.
floor, the motion fails.
There's a motion on the floor. Do I have a second on the motion?
No second
Hearing
on
no,
the floor.
hearing no second,
I
move
don't know
on.
about my regs.
Any other comments?
And
No.
end of report.
End of report, thank you. North Monco Technical Center, Mrs. Shear.
Yes, the North Monco Technical Career Center presented its budget. It represents a 3.36% increase over the current year's budget proposed for 2001-02. As far as major spending increases, North Monco is looking at a 36% increase in benefit costs. They are working to see if perhaps they can, through a consortium, perhaps through a matching of the benefits that they're under contract for with one of the local districts that may be facing lower increases. But at this point in time, they're at an increase of 36% in their benefit costs. They are proposing that they get the enrollment percentage be gauged on a 3.36% average. Michael, this is the area of past budgeting to where we were carrying excess, they were carrying our excess revenues from North Penn School District through overestimation of pupil enrollment that I spoke of. The example is that in October, they basically refunded almost $300,000 to the 5 sending districts. $230,000 of that was our money. So there's, we were, while there was about $70,000 between the other 4 districts in overpayments overall, we're at 230. That's what the number, that's where I was saying that I think we need to take a good look, because there is a greater rate of growth going on right now. We still are, of course, the largest school district within the Career Center, and we'll probably maintain that because of our size. But yet the rate of growth in the other districts combined are all growing now at a faster rate than we are. Souderton, Methacton, Perk Valley are all, all the growth is shifting further west. So if we could take a look at that before this budget's finalized, which is nearby, I'd appreciate it, so that we can see whether we need to make some other adjustments within what the per pupil estimate is. Because otherwise, they have the money all the way through basically 14, 15 months prior to us receiving the refund when there's excess funding going into that area. I don't know if there should be information that was forwarded to the board. Has it come forward yet from the budget? Well, I have one page here. I'll pass it over to Christine. Use a little whiteout on my notes and forward it to the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shear. Any questions? Montgomery County Intermediate Unit, Mr. Gordon.
The last meeting of the Montgomery County IU Board was February 28th. We were discussing the fact that the IU budgets are coming forward to the individual districts. North Penn will need to look at those and vote on them and have that vote back by April 24th, please. So we should see that on the action meeting next month. Also, There was talk regarding legislative issues coming up before the state with regards to educators. And currently in the House, there are approximately 5 bills that have some kind of provision for 30 and out. And the feeling at the IU level was that some form of that will be passed sometime in May. So we may be looking at another 30 and out provision coming forward from the state of Harrisburg that we should be aware of. Next meeting of the IU board is March 28th.
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Let me announce one thing. Mr. Sapinski has left. He has a problem at home that he must attend to, and he had to leave at this time. He left me a note. He's sorry he had to leave. I'd like to move ahead with the audience of citizens. We've had requests, 2 requests for people to speak, and I'll have them speak first. Mr. Bill Taylor.
I am Bill Taylor of Kenilworth Avenue in Lansdale. I apologize for not having my remarks prepared on paper. Hard copy tends to be briefer. I had good intentions. I have to speak to 2 things tonight. One of them has to do with the pregnancy policy. I think the real problem that I have, just as an individual, I'm not representing anybody else, having been concerned in my career with teens who are pregnant, having said the wrong thing at the wrong time and lost several friends over it, things like that, I think that the pregnancy policy as it is presently worded should be a sub-paragraph of a greater policy about treatment of teens. And that would have a subsection for females, pregnancy, and then you might get into this. The best example that I've been able to come up with now that I don't think has been mentioned is sort of extreme of ignorance, but not necessarily such. Most young women don't have their periods regularly for a year or a year and a half after they start having them. Let's suppose you have one who is also a precarious personality, who, whether or not there was intercourse, presumes because of a passing of one period that she's pregnant. That statement, as it's presently proposed, suggests to anyone that they will get whatever staff member they talk to in trouble if they talk to them. Now, that's just one point. As the board stands now, and fortunately we have 2 more readings, I hope there'll be something more open. I do have one chief shot. This is bad statistics and so on, but as I understand it, $25,000 was the cost, not the fees for lawyers and stuff, but the cost to the neighboring school district. Is that correct? If you go to the parking lot, you'll find very few cars that cost less than that out there. That does not refer to your budget of $100 million and more. That for some reason, this item has become out of proportion to the rest of your job. The other thing I have to ask about is, Mrs. Mengel, you did this to Dr. Taub last meeting, and you said a few words that I didn't catch exactly, but it sounded to me like you were playing a paper shuffle trick a la Senator McCarthy. I don't know whether Dr. Taub has done any list. I was sitting next to him at the time. I did ask him, do you know anything about what was going on? And he said no. That he hadn't sent any resume or any paper to you that he knew about. He didn't know where it came from. Now, I could be wrong, and I'm going to be sneaky and leave and hope that if I am wrong, I'll hear about it later, but I'm already late for 2 other meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The other person that asked to speak to the board was Karen Clark. Karen?
Karen Clark, Montgomery Township. I was going to ask for the copy of the minutes of the March 6th work session for that exact reason, but I'm not going to bother now. Mr. Hill, in several places you've been interviewed lately regarding the abortion policy. You keep talking about how you're confused and concerned about how it became a pro-life policy. I think I need to remind you of its conception. You were the chair of the policy committee on September 7th, 1999, when Ms. Burkowski distributed her policy proposal. I understand that's not the policy that we're talking about now, but I'm going to read it so that you will understand why it's become a pro-life, pro-choice issue. It is school district policy that school district personnel and those contracted with and by the school district are to encourage and facilitate communication between students and their parents on the issue of pregnancy. It is also school district policy to encourage childbirth over abortion. Therefore, A, school district personnel and any personnel contracted with by the school district are prohibited from arranging, encouraging, counseling for, or in any way facilitating an abortion for a student. School district personnel and those contracted with and by the school district are prohibited from referring any student to a third party or individual or organization that encourages or provides abortion. B, if requested by a student who is interested in obtaining information or assistance on pregnancy options other than abortion, school district personnel may provide the student with the brochure from the Delaware Valley Pro-Life Alliance. That is a clear assault on the Constitution and legal rights of North Penn students and their parents. Now that you've heard where this all came from, are you still confused? From its conception, it's been a pro-life policy. No matter how many times Mrs. Sher waters it down, the message is clear. And I would publicly like to request that Mrs. Liberowski include that first proposal to the minutes of this meeting. Seems I'm the only one who still admits to having a copy of it. If this board had spent half as much time caring about the finances of the district and its residents as you did on the sex lives of our students, maybe you wouldn't have gotten into the financial mess you're in now, and people wouldn't have to worry what they'll be eating soon.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? Yes, ma'am. Would the other people who would like to speak to the board, if you would line up over there so I can get an idea how many people there are?
Okay. First, because we keep hearing about guidance counselors.
Would you give us your name, please?
Evelyn Campmeyer, Montgomery Township.
Thank you.
Since we keep hearing about guidance counselors, I thought it was good that we take a look at how we evaluate guidance counselors, because that's also part of the policy. One of the ways is time utilization of the various functions that are utilized for guidance counselors. Well, medical authorities in the area have been telling me for a number of years that most of the girls in this area do have abortions with parental consent. Which means if we take a look at our guidance counselors, who we plan for one counselor roughly to 400 students. And so we end up, based on all the functions of guidance counselors, if these students are having the abortions and the guidance counselors aren't involved with them as much as they are with pregnant teens who do carry their babies full term, you will find the amount of time that those counselors, the secondary level, spend on the issue is about 1% during the year of their time that they utilize in the various functions of their guidance. Well, that brings us to the fact then, here we have a board micromanaging. One of the things we find, boards that micromanage lack visionary leadership, or otherwise they'd be working in those particular areas. We've all known, those of us who attended the workshops, this is a politically motivated agenda. One of the things that happens with boards also, when they get to playing politics, your hand isn't as strong when it comes to the negotiations process. Organizational behavior. Well, in good organizations, they delegate responsibility to lower levels, to those people who can do the job. Hepburn Horsham had confidence in their administrative staff, and they delegated the responsibility to them to come up with administrative guidelines. I'm not sure if you don't trust your administrators. Personally, from all the bias I have listened to in the workshop and the various copies of this policy, my faith is in the professionalism and the objectivity of the administrative staff to make these guidelines, not this board. One of the other things that I want to bring up, and to Mr. Taylor, and whether you're aware or not, this only affects female students. There's possibility for discrimination, and it better be considered. I see that this policy, you pass it, it's going to come back and haunt you, and even haunt you politically. I also would like to make one other comment here. Mr. Gordon, I know you brought up your support for parents to be able to fund projects at the middle school level. The middle school level, you can improve education. You can also improve one of the goals of quality education in this state, to develop positive use of leisure time. And when we develop positive use of leisure time, we have less problems usually with drugs, discipline, and sexual activity as well. So I support having the parents involved in that funding, which I don't believe is totally the case at this point at the middle school level. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Parents are okay with fundraising
I'm going to be very brief. I'd like to say that reasonable people
Can you speak up a little?
I'm sorry.
There.
I'm sorry, I'm David Tobe from Montgomery Township. I'd like to say that reasonable people can disagree, yet they can work together to find common ground. I think that one could draft a policy that would find that sort of common ground. Something along the lines of explicitly stating that counselors cannot impose their personal reproductive preferences upon a pregnant student, including abortion. Nor should they become directly involved in arranging abortion, adoption, or other reproductive services for that student. Counselors are encouraged to refer for options counseling and involve parents in any decisions with the student's express consent. Counselors would therefore be prohibited by such a policy from encouraging students to have an abortion. They would similarly be prohibited from telling students that they would have to carry their pregnancies to term. No one, not a teacher, guidance counselor, school board member, or physician, should impose their personal reproductive views on a pregnant woman. This is a pretty reasonable position. The current version of your proposed policy is a little different. Now, some might say, what's the big deal? But there are significant problems with your version. According to a recent issue of Education Week, the Hatboro-Horsham Directive specifically states that counseling is encouraged. Their directive, not a policy, but a directive, focuses more on discouraging a guidance counselor from directly aiding and abetting a student obtaining an abortion than on directing everything back to the parents. This is different from your policy, in which while parental involvement is encouraged specifically, there is no explicit mention of respecting privacy rights, nor providing referrals for appropriate counseling. In other words, your policy is not balanced. I'd like to finish by asking 3 questions. First, how many guidance counselors were consulted about this proposed policy? Have any counselors been provided with this proposal for review since, let's face it, it directly affects them in terms of their work? And finally, is there any concern about the litigation that will arise if and when a guidance counselor unknowingly violates federal laws to which your policy so nebulously refers? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'm not going to respond to those right now. Well, I'll make a statement to you. Yes, ma'am. Or sir. I didn't see you behind me.
I'm very petite, you noticed that.
You were hidden back here. I couldn't
Right,
find you.
really. I'm very shy also. My name is John Hoy, and I was at the last meeting you had on this subject.
what I've tried to do in the interim is learn more about it. So I'm back again, I'm back for this reason. I continue to support the board in this policy. It is also a courageous move that you're making. I must say that it's the best policy for the children. Having talked to people and so on. It gets the parents involved. It also says you do what the law says, federal law, state law, and so on. So I'm here to support you. I also learned one other thing. I should tell you where I make my living, because it may shed some light on my bias. My bias is to be for the children. I make my living simply by being an investor. I'm an old man, I have 9 grandchildren and so on. So I'm interested in the children. But I learned that, I think Dr. Job, is that your correct name, my murder pronunciation?
Job.
Job, okay. I don't know, do you perform abortions? I'm sorry, I don't have. I really don't know.
I don't want to get into it.
No, I don't want to either. But I'm just saying that that's one of the things I found that people are out there supporting, because it's a $4 billion industry. So I think you're very courageous. I think you come up with a good plan, and I know you'll back it up, and we're 100% behind. And thank you for the time.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Now it's yes, ma'am.
I'll round up the conversation. My name is Susan Leonard. I live at 309 Upper Valley Road. Just for a point of clarification, I would like to ask the board, under this policy, the way it's written, if somebody, a teacher, a guidance counselor, or anybody, disseminates information, is that a violation of this policy?
Let me just clearly state what this, I'll have Jay talk to it, but clearly the policy is very clear in that the counselors will continue to do what they're presently doing, abiding by the state and federal law, period. Nothing has changed. The only thing we're staying in the first part of that policy is to protect ourselves from having an incident that had it happen at Horsham. Nothing else has changed. Nothing, no direction has been given to counselors. They will continue to disseminate or do what they have done in the past.
Okay, so if I can ask a second question then. Based on the wording, third sentence, shall not become involved in obtaining an abortion for any North Penn School District student. I, as an attorney, if somebody came into my office and said, Mr. Jones gave my daughter information about an abortion and she went out and had an abortion, and I think that means shall not become involved, and I'm going to have a lawsuit about that, would this board back the teacher?
Let me clarify something if I can. As I mentioned before, the policy sets the direction, and that's the board's prerogative, the general direction. There are administrative regulations that will provide, that are being worked on right now, I believe. Is that right? Yeah. They're being worked on right now that will give specifics as to what involvement is. I believe that those administrative regulations, although I believe that they clarify that it is active involvement in procuring an abortion that is prohibited by the policy. I think those administrative regulations also specifically state that the dissemination of information to students is not involvement in obtaining an abortion.
So to answer my question, this board then would back the teacher, administrator, or guidance counselor if that scenario took place?
That's correct.
Okay, then, thank you.
Jay, for clarification, Mr. Hickey out in Hatboro Horsham didn't drive the student. He gave him information and
He used, I believe, the allegations were that he used school district funds.
No, he had just assisted in the cashing of a check, which gave them the funds, but it wasn't the money.
Using school district funds to cash the checks.
Yeah.
That's right.
I'm just not sure that.
He did a little more than that.
That was the allegation.
He didn't drive.
I'm not saying that that's a
that.
true allegation, but that was the allegation.
Yes, ma'am.
Bobby Cunneman, Lansdale Borough. I have a number of things I'd like to talk about briefly today or ask about, mention. The first of which is, I haven't been here a lot recently. I have been watching on television, and I have to say the sound on the television broadcast has been terrible. I don't know if anything can be done about it, but it's hard to hear even here in the room, the sound system.
That's
but
Christine's problem.
At home, it's even worse. It's almost inaudible sometimes. As you know from other comments that I've made in the past, I am a user of the Extended School Care Program, and I've been an advocate. I've been very favorably impressed with the Extended School Care Program. I did just recently receive my renewal brochure saying that my costs were going up 10% this coming year. I came by the building a couple of days ago when there was a budget meeting, and I picked up a budget, and I was surprised to not see in the budget any kind of a profit and loss statement for the Extended School Care Program.
Got a question?
Yes.
I'll have Mr. Frisk speak to that.
The Extended School Care Program is one of our enterprise funds, is not part of the general operating budget.
As a parent who funds that program, is there any plan to prepare a P&L statement for that program?
We have prepared P&L statements, and as I've indicated to the board, for informational purposes, it will be presented to the board in a future budget meeting, but it's not part of the general operating budget.
Does the board approve the costs associated with that program?
They approved those costs at the last board meeting.
So before those costs are passed along to the parents in the brochure for advertising for next year's plan, shouldn't they be approved? Shouldn't the P&L be presented to the board and approved by the board?
Again, it was approved and
Whose
was
committee
presented.
does this fall under? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be really talking to Mr. Frisk, but
It falls under finance. It's a budgetary item. It runs itself. It's just like our adult evening classes at the high school.
which I understand has
They
been a
fund
controversial
themselves.
subject for many years in
Right.
that there has never been the ability to develop a P&L for that particular activity. But given that the Extended School Care Program is a one-year-old program and has no history, it should be very simple to develop a P&L and make that available, especially to the shareholders who are paying for it.
That
That's me.
information is available.
And particularly when the costs are going up 10% this year. Now, for a program that was supposed to hold the costs and deliver value, I'm not sure how 10% fits in the equation. That's a hit to me. I also received a brochure for the summer extended school care program, and that has the summer ending on August 10th. August 10th. How many days vacation do most of you folks have? I have 2 weeks vacation. I have to take my 2 weeks vacation in order to take care of my child in August, and then I have to take unpaid leave time because our program is not customer focused. It is not meeting the needs of the consumer in providing care through the summer. We don't even have a first day of school set for September 2001 yet. So I don't even know how many days past those 3 weeks when there's no extended school care program, I'm going to have to take unpaid leave from my job in order to take care of my child if I wanted to use the extended school care program for the summer. I'm not sure that that's a consumer-oriented, customer-driven decision to discontinue that operation on August 10th. Seems a little late in the year for the first day of school to be set for next year also. It was, I had thought from prior years that we were setting our calendar for a year ahead. Perhaps I was mistaken.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, moving on to the budget. At last week's school board meeting, there was a discussion of home and schools having paid for items that should rightfully have been paid by the North Penn School District over many years, in particular playground equipment. That sounds suspiciously like election year rhetoric. Now we have a $132 million budget. That budget does include some playground equipment. When I hear talk about holding our costs to an even level, and I look at a budget that includes carpeting and a public address system and thousands of dollars in sports-oriented items at the high school, replacement lockers, scoreboards, it just makes me laugh. When I hear a school board director saying 3 administrators can just walk right out of this room right now, I'd rather see that happen than that we cut a $310,000 math program. I have to laugh. Let's cut out some of that sports equipment. Let's cut out a scoreboard. Let's cut out curtains. Let's cut out carpeting. Let's focus on education. I noticed too, one of my pet peeves, one of my pet subjects is the Gwyn Nor Library. Of course, that's something very dear to me because my child attends Gwyn Nor. And Mr. Up for election this year has done a 180 more than once here about that Gwyn Nor Library. And now it's not in the budget, and it's going to be part of the overall review process. I don't disagree that it should be part of that overall review process. But given that it's an election year, we just seem to be hearing too many twists and turns on whether that's going to get done or not. And now we're considering adding 5 more modulars at Pembroke. And my question would be, how many modulars do we have at Pembroke now? How old are they? How many years have we had them? I don't see anybody jumping up to give me any information. What is their current lifespan compared to real bricks and mortar construction? If we added new modulars, would they be trailers or would they be more modulars strung onto the current modulars? How many modulars are we satisfied with accepting in this school district? When do we look for real construction? When is modular construction acceptable to us? How many years do we have to have modulars at a building before we realize there is a need for bricks and mortar construction? And let's not give us that old song and dance about, oh, the children love the modulars, they're air conditioned, the facilities are great. It's not the same as bricks and mortar. It's not permanent. If we've had modulars at Pembroke for 10 years, or even for 5 years, and if we need more modulars, isn't it a safe leap to say we need more than modulars? Isn't it time to look at a redistricting plan for our middle schools? Isn't it time to look at bricks and mortar construction for our middle schools? How long have we known that we have a population bulge coming to our middle schools? This is not a surprise. This is not a surprise any more than our budget should not be a surprise to anyone in this room. This budget should not surprise any North Penn school director who has been on top of their role over the last couple of years. Now, I understand this is a ground up budget, and the first budget is very raw, and it includes wish lists. But if there have been adequate and appropriate communication between the school district administrators and the North Penn School Board directors, none of this should have been a surprise. Where have the school board directors been for the last 4 years? Might I suggest that instead of spending time on matters such as a pregnancy policy, which is totally irrelevant to the educational needs of this community, and the imposition of a minority's morality into this community via this stealth missile attack, this North Penn School Board focus on the educational needs of this student body and the finances of this school district.
Can you wrap it up? Next.
This is the board that promised to hold the line, to keep the costs down, to cut the waste. And now you're proposing adding spending on items that are currently funded by home and schools, adding all kinds of fat, inviting administrators to walk out the door, and you're certainly not meeting your campaign promises that got many of you elected by a naive public that fell for a bill of goods. Thank you.
Mrs. Penniman, at the Ed Services meeting, the information regarding Pembroke, 10-year-old modulars, 16 of them on Pembroke. The additions that may be necessary next year will be mobile classrooms. And we'll discuss that further at Ed Services and further information coming from the principals.
Mobile again, will you?
Mobile, not modular, mobile. What we're talking about.
All right, let's move along.
Okay, I'm Walter Cosmo from Colemanson Township, President of the Taxpayers Association. We have a lot of problems with your proposed budget, especially the one that's pushing senior citizens out of their homes because your budget is so high and the taxes are gonna go skyer. They're gonna go higher than these rockets they're putting up today. I'll start you out with some easy questions. Those other ones I'm saving for when you have your budget meeting. I see in tonight's paper you're gonna buy 10 more new buses. When I came here a year or so ago and I asked you, Mr. Hill, I heard you're gonna buy 10 buses, probably for the next 5 years, 10 buses a year. You looked at me and you looked at all the rest of the directors like, what's the matter, is he nuts or something? Months later, you guys bought 10 buses. That's a lie. You're lying right from where you're sitting. Okay, how many dollars worth of musical instruments does your board buy a year? Approximately. I don't want an exact figure.
I don't have that information here, but we can get you that information, but I don't have it available in front of me.
Well, it seems like every budget you get, I looked at the papers here less than a month ago, you got $45,000 worth of musical instruments in there. In the budget that you put out previously, you had listed what horns and stuff you were buying, 3,200 for this kind, 2,000 for this kind. Now all you do is list musical instruments. I added them up in this last one, 45,000 approximately. By this time, every year you buy that much, you sure ought to have a warehouse full. Okay, let's see, and I understand, and this is no reflection on you, Mr. Hassler, that we ought to raise your salary to $175,000.
There you go.
Peace for that.
Oh, yes, the man that suggested that is sitting right next, you're not next to you, but he's sitting here, because it'll put a feather in our cap. Well, man, I'm going to tell you how you can get a bigger feather than that. Our governor makes $131,730 a year. If we give him a raise in salary of $20,000, approximately $150,000, we can have an ex-governor running here for superintendent. What a feather that would be in your hat. All right, let me see what else I have. And these are just the easy questions. Technology, when it was mentioned to be $4.5 million, everybody up there, oh, that's a lot of money. That's when Mr. White's was here. Now it's up in the neighborhood of 10 million. When are you going to grab a hold of that budget, and especially on technology, and keep it down instead of letting it go sky high? The next one will be another 10 million, it'll be 20 million then. You just keep spending money and spending money and spending money. And when you were all running for office, you were conservative Republicans. Where's the conservatism? Now, just one more little thing. We know all the people that are going to run for office this time. 3 of them are in the board there now. And I want to tell all of you people that have a BS degree, you know what BS stands for? Well, the next one you're going to get from the board is going to be an MS, which means more of the same if they get elected. And then, if they get elected, you'll also get another one after that, which will be a PhD. It's gonna be piled higher and deeper. Thank you.
Anyone else? I think that was,
I forgot to show you people something here,
Oh.
because I was quoted in the paper as saying that the people that are being put out of their homes aren't gonna have anything to eat. Here it is. This is their meat meal. Take a good look at it, because the next time I come here, I'll bring you the flag upside down. You're in trouble.
all right, I'd like to move along now to the superintendent's report.
Under the superintendent's report, A is to recommend approval to reimburse the Home and School Association not to exceed $1,750 for the cost of incorporation and filing fees for tax exempt status.
So moved.
Mr. O'Donnell, Mr. Gordon, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so ordered.
B, recommend approval of Plan C to support the elementary ESL program as attached.
Second.
Mrs. Mengel, Mrs. Burkowski, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Opposed, so ordered.
C, recommend approval to adopt the everyday math program for grades K through 6.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Schilling, Mrs. Mengel, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
One no vote.
D, recommend approval of the corrective action plan for the Auditor General's audit report for the years ending June 30th, 1998 and 1997.
So moved.
Mr. O'Donnell, Mr. Gordon, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered.
E, recommend approval of the financing of 10 buses through Provident Leases Corporation of Baltimore, Maryland in the amount of $517,385.
So moved.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Second.
Mr. Allen, any questions?
Yes. Mike.
Mr. Gordon?
We approved the purchase of these buses at a previous meeting, and now we're dealing with the finances on them. We're spending money, of course, to get money, but is there not money in our budgets to buy these buses outright as opposed to using tax dollars to fund interest payments?
Mr. Fisk, can you speak to these questions?
The purpose is to not tax the public now for next 4 years down the road. This is the total cost, 100,000, 100,000, 100,000, 100,000 at the 4 point, whatever rate it is.
4.61.
Right, and then my question was going to be, what interest rate did you get? So this 512 is not, this 517 is not going to be in the budget spending. Taxing the taxpayers is 517. Therefore, we're committed to spending, getting 10 buses for the next umpteen years. Tax the taxpayers only for what we need to spend right now. So it's 512 total, but only 112 or something, whatever the number is. This year, next year, 112, 112, 112.
We're gonna spend, this reads that we're going to be leasing these buses at the amount of $517,385. That's total cost
That's the total lease, that's correct.
over 5 years?
That's correct. No, that's not the total cost over 5 years. That's the amount that we're leasing. We have the interest charges, 4.61%, that we'll also be paying on that.
Do we not have the money to buy those buses in either this year's budget because we've spent it somewhere else, or to put it in next year's budget to pay for it next year and not pay the interest cost?
As was discussed at the Finance Committee, and Mr. O'Donnell has already stated, this is a continuing expense. We basically we have a replacement schedule for our buses, and therefore the decision was that it's better to go ahead and lease those. The additional cost as far as leasing is not that significant, that it's better to go ahead and lease those.
And if we tax the taxpayers for this, that'll get lost in something else if we don't buy buses then. We're committing the board to buying buses. If we tax the taxpayers for this millage, then you're committing the taxpayers to get 10 buses, 10 buses, 10 buses, 10 buses every year.
Right.
Well, when's it going to stop? We'll have 1,000 buses.
When we stop replacing buses, right?
Then you reduce the tax? That never happens. Never happens.
Well, it should happen if we don't need the
It
buses, right?
never happens.
Well, there's a problem
I
there.
wish that would happen.
But if we are on a replacement schedule for buses, and we've gotten through and replaced, if we're on this plan of 10 buses, eventually we've got a pretty new fleet here.
And that, then
And
something
then
else will
we'll
come
stop
up,
buying more buses,
something
right?
else will come up,
And
and
we
that
start
tax will be
again.
absorbed. You won't see a decrease in that.
Mike, what's your position on this?
My recommendation to the finance committee was that we purchase the buses. Thank you.
It's in the minutes. And can I follow up, Donna? First of all, I've heard that from Frank and Vince when they argued this, but they also presented it like we were leasing them almost as a rental. We bought the buses. We paid we committed $517,385. They are not rentals, they are our buses. We're then taking, after we buy the buses, we're then using the buses as collateral to go out and borrow money rather than pay the money that we did tax the people for. It was in the budget. There's a line item written right in the budget that was a little more than 520,000. I think it was 575 or something like that. That was a line item to purchase the buses cash. Secondly, they say that we can offset this by investing the money at a higher rate than the 4.64. First of all, that really only works unless you're able to get some usury rates out there, if you're able to freeze your money and you're not drawing down your balance. In other words, if we're paying $100 and some thousand out a year to the bank and we're depreciating just the principal plus an interest charge, you're gonna have a hard time being able to create more money out of your greater reduction, drawdown of your escrow monies than what you've got getting
Vicki,
credit for
it's
the
a
bank.
good idea not to tax the taxpayers for something in future years. You should only tax the taxpayers for what's going on now.
That is the nail in the taxpayer's coffin from the June 15th Finance Committee meeting. That's how come we're sitting here with a budget that's $6 million deficit before we even start to pay next year's bills.
And if you just talk about the interest rates, we're averaging 6 to 7%, therefore we're getting that 2 or 3% more on our money, and we typically have that extra $5-7 million in an all-around float all the time, so we are earning interest to offset
But
that.
we are still paying interest, and we're gonna have to pay interest and only get credit against the principal as far as each one of these amortizations go. It doesn't work that way unless you're borrowing $5 million, investing $5 million, and not spending any of the $5 million for the same amount of time. Because otherwise, you've got to draw down.
What I'm talking about is a basic accounting concept. It works, and when you also use net present value, you discount it back, it's on lower cost. Put it in today's dollars.
Frank, you're the one who decided that it was good to draw down the fund balance, one-time money to pay the bills this year. And
Vicki,
we are sitting here with a major
I'm only
deficit.
talking about the buses.
But that's the
I'm
same
only talking
policy,
about
it's the same
the
fiscal
buses.
policy.
There's a motion on the floor to approve this.
Well, I don't
If
support
it's
it,
such,
we've
Mr.
already
O'Donnell,
taxed.
if it's such a good idea and we hire such good administrators, why are we going against what our administrator is suggesting?
Because the committee recommended it and the board
It may
approved
only
it.
cost 30 or 40,000
You may
more.
not-
I won't know how
Mr.
much.
Gordon, you may not have
This
approved it.
argument was fine until you did that, okay? This argument on the merits of money is fine.
It's money.
Okay, do you actually think the board should follow the recommendation of the administration every single time?
I
Okay,
think
what are
we're-
they, deity?
If-
We have second-guessed administrators many, many times. Sometimes it's been good decisions.
Right.
Do you know we would have an empty second high school right now if we took the position of the administration?
Mrs.
Okay?
Bagley, do you know?
The
whether-
bottom line is, why don't you stick to the merits of the money and don't bait the man about following
No,
the
no,
recommendations
Donna.
of administration?
Donna, let me just make a last
Spare
comment.
me.
I know
At
it's
last
hard. I
year's
just don't
finance
think it's
meeting,
good policy.
when the full board showed up, I said, let's get a recommendation, how do we want to proceed with the first presentation? And I made it a point to get it in the minutes. You said, I am fine with the first, tax the taxpayers for the first draft, which was totally unacceptable to the board. I think it was like $480 increase would have been last year. And you said that was absolutely fine, the first draft, without seeing any detailed information. That was in our minutes. Would you like Christine to get that for you? So please, I didn't want to go there, but you brought it up. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah, Mr. Allen.
With the lease arrangement that we have on this particular group of buses, it's for how long?
It's a 5-year lease.
And what happens at the end of 5 years?
They revert, there are buses.
There
This
are
is a
buses.
This is a capital lease
So basically what we're doing is buying buses
and financing.
and financing them at 4.6% interest over 5 years and I believe, am I correct?
That's correct.
I know we'd all like to get loan money at that rate. But we have had this discussion in the past about capital purchase and budgetary purchase. And I think if we follow what we all agreed to, between the value and length of of the buses, buying them on a year, with a one-time purchase out of, or payment out of the general fund is not what we have agreed to. So to me, when I hear this, it's following the procedures that we have set up, or a majority of the board has agreed to. And as a personal opinion, I don't believe that something that lasts approximately 10 years, I'm going to give a bus 10 years, should be purchased at a one-time purchase. I think it should be spread out over a longer time period and paid for by those taxpayers yearly as it is used.
Do you understand?
And that's why I agree with what we're doing here.
Bill, just so you understand, this was in this year's budget. We budgeted for this to be paid for, so it's been taxed for already.
I understand.
And it was a cash
I understand.
recommendation last spring.
That's fine.
All right, I'd like to call for a roll call
Okay.
vote on this.
I just think maybe for next year's budget.
What's the motion, please?
Finance buses.
Police bus.
Me to read it again?
Sometimes
Full-
we lose track.
Bill 4E here. It's 4E.
4E.
That's the motion.
Recommend approval of financing of 10 buses through Provident Leases Corporation of Baltimore, Maryland.
That's been made and seconded.
Okay.
Let's get a roll call.
Do we have a total cost with this motion though, Don? In other words, we're financing 517, 385. What is the full agreement price that we're approving tonight?
It's at 4.61. I don't have that information with me.
You
I
don't
can't
have
get
the
that.
agreement?
I don't have the agreement with me. Christine, do you have the agreement with? Did you get the signature on it yet?
You have it.
Because I haven't seen an agreement
It's
on
in
it.
file.
Stuff I haven't signed.
Can you pass that file down to?
It's in the agreement.
We can
but
get
it's-
that information
it's
for you.
517 at 4.61%.
Yeah, but we should be approving what the agreement itself is.
We're approving the purchase and the financing of the $517,000.
Not in this motion.
Let's have the roll call, please.
Allen,
Yes?
Gordon,
No.
Mengel,
No.
no,
No.
O'Donnell,
Yes.
Kirkowski,
No.
Sheriff,
No.
Schilling,
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
We've got a tie.
It goes down.
It's tabled. Next item.
F, recommend approval by resolution to submit PlanCon Part D documents to the Pennsylvania Department of Education for additions and alterations to the Oak Park Elementary School.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Prokowski, Mr. Gordon, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so ordered.
G, recommend approval by resolution to submit PlanCon Part E documents and drawings to the Pennsylvania Department of Education for additions and alterations to Oak Park Elementary School.
So moved. Second.
Mrs. Mengel, Mr. Gordon, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so ordered.
H, recommend acceptance of the following gifts to the school district from Nash Home and School Association and Pembroke Home and School Association as listed.
So moved.
Mrs. Prokowski,
Second.
Mr. Gordon, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so ordered.
I recommend award of the following bids to landscape planting replacement North Penn High School and electrical substation replacement North Penn High School.
I need a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Schilling. Need a second.
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 Mrs. Prokowski, any questions?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Allen.
The electrical substation replacement, the location of the new substation. Will you assure us that it will not interfere with any existing playing fields?
Yes, we've already looked at that, and the plan shows it just off of the soccer field. It's further in towards the building, but further, let's say northwest, towards the
You don't,
stadium.
just you're happy with the location, won't affect the playing field or the cross-country route or anything? Okay, thank you.
Mr.
Gordon. The landscape planting replacement, I know we ran into trouble when the new addition at the high school was put on and the timing of it and the bad winter we had. All those other issues as to the previous installation been dealt with?
They're always
All our bills and stuff are paid up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
One, regarding both of these, are these going to be attached or continuations of the expenses still carried over from the high school project?
The
Do
landscape
that
planning
now.
is part of the bond issue for the high school. The transformer is in next year's budget.
Okay, so that wasn't anything that was a part of the project, so we don't have any other, do we have outstanding state money reimbursements, project reimbursements?
For the high school?
For the high school, yes.
Yes.
And will this all, is there still more work and more filings to be done in order to give them a complete total so that we get our full reimbursement from the
That's
state?
correct. That final filing has not been completed yet.
Okay. Someone want to prepare for us, as we're sitting here in a very negative fiscal year, what we can anticipate in state reimbursement money, because we should be talking a significant amount of dollars, a few $1 million.
No, I don't believe so. We've
You don't-
been
have we
we've been
received
receiving,
some?
yes, we've been
Okay.
receiving partial payments
Sorry.
throughout the year, and all it's left is a reconciliation when we file the final report.
All right, sorry, Michael, I didn't know, we have sometimes been 2 years after a project before we even receive the dollars towards it, so you're talking we only have minimal.
Correct.
Okay.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so ordered.
Under personnel, I'd like to draw your attention to the addendum and begin with that. Personnel J1, I'm very happy to recommend the approval of Stephen Frederick as principal of North Penn High School effective July 1, 2001.
So moved.
So can I have salaries?
We got some
Unanimous.
So we like the
enthusiasm
guy.
here. Mr. Schilling, Mr. O'Donnell,
Same
any
salary.
questions?
With change.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so ordered. Welcome
Number-
aboard.
Number 2, recommend approval of a half-time special education teacher at York Avenue Elementary School.
Second.
Mr. Schilling, Mr. Allen, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so ordered.
3, recommend approval of a half-time special education teacher at Oak Park Elementary School.
So moved.
Mrs. Prokowski,
Second.
Mr. Gordon, any questions?
I have one. Are all of these people only gaining more time at a current salary as they've been employees?
No, they haven't been employed.
Okay, so we have another motion coming, we'll have other motions
Right.
coming later that'll
Yes.
designate their salary.
The higher
And
provision.
Just approving the
approval.
position.
just, I know just to say that you can go out and get them. I didn't know if they're in there later. Okay.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so ordered.
4, recommend approval of 1 special education assistant, teacher assistant at Hatfield Elementary.
So moved.
Mr. Allen, Mrs. Prokowski, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So ordered.
Back to the main part of the agenda. Under personnel, recommend approval of the following personnel items. A, nominations.
So moved.
Mrs. Prokowski.
Second.
Mr. Gordon, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so ordered.
B, retirements.
So moved.
Mr.
Second.
Gordon, Mrs. Mingle, any questions?
Comment.
Yes, comment.
I'd like to note that Bill Hoodler is English teacher at the high school. He's been here since 1967.
Yes, it is.
I had Bill, Terry's
So
been
did
Bill,
I.
when we
Yeah.
were in high school. And I believe I can totally and completely credit my love of reading in my private time. I'm a Trekkie, too. To Bill Hoopler, I think the opportunity to have employed this man since 1967 was to our benefit, and he and his wife are probably 2 of the best teachers the school district will ever see. He's always been a gentleman, he was a wonderful teacher, and I think he's a prince of a man, so I will miss him. I'll miss you too, Don, when you retire.
Let's not go there.
Another surprise tonight.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so ordered. Resignations.
C, resignations.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Gordon, Mrs. Prokowski, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so ordered.
D, position change.
So moved.
Mr.
Second.
Gordon, Mrs. Prokowski, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so ordered.
E, change of status.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Gordon, Mrs. Prokowski, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so ordered.
F, leave of absence.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. O'Donnell, Mrs. Prokowski, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so ordered.
G, change of effective date of leave of absence.
So moved.
Mr. Gordon, Mrs. Mingle, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so ordered.
H, extension of leave of absence.
So moved.
Mr. Gordon, Did I hear a second?
Second.
Mrs. Paskowski? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so ordered.
I, extension of contracts.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Gordon, Mr. Allen, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so ordered.
And J, salary correction.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Gordon, Mr. Allen, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so ordered.
2, recommend approval of additions to the professional and support staff substitute list for the 2000-2001 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Allen, Mr. Gordon, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so ordered.
3, recommend approval of additions and changes to the extra duty assignments for the 2000-2001 school year.
So moved.
Mr. Gordon,
Second.
Mr. Allen, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so ordered.
We are pulling K, student travel. There's been a change of plans that they're working on, so I'm pulling it off the agenda tonight.
Everything?
It's only one.
Okay.
Vandalism report is listed.
Under other business, I need a motion as written. Somebody read that motion?
I will recommend approval of the appointment of Robert G. Hassler to a 3-year commission as district superintendent commencing July 1st, 2001, upon the terms and conditions of an employment agreement dated 3/15/01.
So moved.
Second.
I already have a second. Mrs. Mangle, Mr. Schilling, any questions? I'd like to have a roll call vote on that, just.
Yes.
Mangle.
No.
No?
No.
O'Donnell.
Yes.
Paskowski.
Yes.
Scher.
No.
Schilling.
Yes.
Sherpinski. Allen.
Missing in action
Yes.
again.
Hill.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Welcome aboard for 3 more years.
Thank you very much.
It's, the copies of his contract are available. Mr. Fisk, finance report.
They are available, aren't they?
They are available.
Oh, okay.
You have a copy of the treasurer's report. It indicates cash receipts in February of $2,189,898.70. Cash disbursements of $11,551,100.32. The total balance at the end of February is $44,396,934.24.
Thank you.
Any questions on the treasurer's report?
I have just a quick question. The $896,000 for the escrow accounts paid in protest, has that been going up? Just for some reason it caught my eye tonight.
Yes, it has been slightly increasing. Because when they pay the taxes, we have to put that in escrow. If they-
Well, I mean, I know that process. I know we've usually been trying to get that thing down, but I guess you can't.
No, we have little control over it.
Okay, thank you.
Michael, what are we getting on our short-term investments right about now?
Right about now, I'm not sure what the Fed's gonna do next week, but right about now, we're about 5.9 to 6%. We're right about 6%.
On the short,
Market keeps going.
short percent?
Moving ahead.
Recommend sanction and approval of invoices.
So moved.
Mr. O'Donnell, need a second?
Second.
Mr. Allen, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I like that enthusiasm. Opposed, so ordered.
Recommend approval of budget transfers in the amount of $370,660 for the 2000-2001 fiscal year.
So moved.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Second.
Mr. Allen, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so ordered.
That completes my report.
Any report? Mr. Venema, do you have anything to say?
Yes, I do.
Oh, my goodness.
We have received a grant, the Refugee Children's Impact Aid Grant, in the amount of $11,250 to support our student-needs students at the high school and one of our middle schools.
How much money?
Would you say that?
$11,250.
How
It's
many
being
students?
used to help assist with the transition of these students into our population. I think we have 6 boys that are here.
Specifically, what are you going to use it for? Salary?
Yes, an assistant to help out with their transition.
To buy them books or any teaching aids or?
Well, they have that, and they're providing that through our ESL program, but this specific grant is for an assistant to help.
So you're going to use the
out
11,000 for people?
One person, one aide.
I'm just trying to,
assist.
I want to ask.
Right.
Okay,
That's what it's for. It's for the remainder of the year.
okay. Thank you.
Is that complete your report? Well, that was good. Solicitor, do we have anything to say?
No report, Mr. Hill.
Good report.
Move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.